What's going on, boys? It's Daddy Big here. We are back on the podcast with got Sam back with me today,
Yes, sir. It is me.
and Sam being the massive, big, muscular man that he is,
Jeez.
I thought he would be a good guest for this topic. We're kind of going to be exploring like what it means to be a man in like today's world. Because I feel like because there's the millennia old idea of what a man should be, and now it's like, obviously gender roles are gradually getting destroyed, which, don't get me wrong, I think that's a good thing for sure, that, things are getting more accessible. But at the same time, I think having a sense of being, like, the feeling of being a man and understanding what that means to you, I still feel like, for me, that's something that's really important and something that we shouldn't strive to ignore or strive to, because it's not about trying to eliminate a sense of being a woman or being a man or being whatever you are. It's about opening up those opportunities for people.
It's about redefining it healthily is what I'd say.
Yeah, for sure. So I kind of just wanted to explore this idea of like what being a man really means, because in my opinion, it's something really personal. To me, it's like the moments when I feel like I'm the big man. It's like those.
What would
are
you
often,
say those moments are? What is that to you?
I don't know. It's often like some of the most personal moments I have with myself. It's just like those where I feel, or directly coming to terms or directly interacting with my manhood in some way. You know what I mean? So it's like, I don't know. Did you have any opening thoughts?
So I don't know. I could go into a lot of stuff here, honestly, because it's something that I'd say about a half a year ago I gave a lot of thought to. And what it really just came down to me is, not in the traditional sense, I'd say, but being a provider of sorts. And not a provider in like, oh, I'm like bringing home the bread or something like that. But
in a more traditional sense, I guess.
Yeah, I'd say being someone that's there for someone is kind of just what it really came down to for me, is just being, I don't know. God, now I really got to think about it.
Yeah, because I think that's kind of like one of the more like stereotypical traditional man qualities is like being the rock.
Yeah.
Being solid, being the foundation of like a family.
Yeah, but I don't necessarily mean that in like the age-old sense.
Yeah, exactly. But
yeah, I just mean, I guess one of the times that it felt most affirmed to me, I guess, was other, like, having the ability to have other people be very comfortable in your presence.
Yeah,
that's one thing that meant a lot to me. I feel like that is maybe one of the most healthy kind of manifestations, that's a weird way to put it, but of being a man in today's world.
Yeah, putting people at ease, and maybe like in a more testosterone based sense, just like the ability to make people feel safe.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I feel like the old balls down there pumping out the hormones. It's like
Jeez.
Testosterone, is not always your friend. But I feel like with my girlfriend, she means the world to me. Obviously, we're just at that point, and it's like, for me, it's like I feel like a deep desire and a deep need to like protect her and keep her safe. And it's like that's just one of those. I feel like that's one of those things just like fundamentally human, and like fundamentally, like as a man, that desire to like make your loved ones feel safe.
And would you mind if I actually kind of took this and like took a bit of a step back and said, like, I don't know, or just wanted to discuss like what society sees as a man? Yeah,
because that's kind of what we're exploring, right? Because we're at this point where, with social reforms going on, gender roles being kind of a thing of the past, or at least the traditional ones. Like we're at this point where, the family structure of like man goes to work, woman cooks dinner and raises kids, like that's in recent memory, like the 50s and stuff. But we're at this point now where like things are changing, you know, and that's why I think this is such an interesting topic because, like, don't get me wrong, I think obviously women's rights are very important, you know, but I think
Scam.
no, like my point is like
No, I know. Go on.
yeah, I know it's maybe not the best tone to take, but like my point is like I feel like we can't neglect talking about like men, you know, because I mean, here's the thing. Obviously, I'm not trying to like say that. I mean, I'm not trying to step out of lane here, basically. But I think that like, you know, even though yes, like minority groups like women have been for historically a very long time, it's like obviously that's kind of the most important thing is focusing on that element of it. But you know, I think it's also just to me like working towards like you know because kind of with the topic gender equality isn't just about necessarily strictly empowering women. You know, it's more to me about like making everyone on the same level.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, and that actually
doesn't only that like in my like here's the thing like obviously like if you really break it down to like a mathematical level, yeah, we're like empowering women with gender equality, right? But at the same time, it's like if you want to achieve gender equality, men like should be a part of the conversation.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and honestly, like I can't remember who it was, but I watched a video a little while back, and it was just discussing the fact that like throughout all of the discussion for like gender equality, there's kind of just been this gradual trend of kind of attempting not to reform but to erase manhood. And I don't mean that like in the radical sense, like I just mean I'd say there is a strong sense of what's increasingly, well, I don't know, it's such a tough thing to really quantify because like
and I feel like one thing like with the internet is like this whole concept of like toxic masculinity.
Oh god, I could get into that.
Kind of been like a little bit potentially blown out of proportion because like I mean like you can say pretty much anything is toxic masculinity. You know what I mean? I mean I guess I'm not as well versed in necessarily how toxic masculinity is defined online or like by feminists or anything like that, but I just feel like that's something, you know, I would imagine we have to be careful with that. Just because, you know, I mean like one of my main points here is like, yeah, the traditional family image isn't, you know, obviously I know that like it's not savory. I don't want that.
Yeah, no, it's very imperfect. Yeah.
But it's like it's like, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
The fun that's like what we're here to talk about, right? Is how we can preserve like what's most like what exactly like what does being a man mean now? You know, because I think it's something that's still really important, at least to me, to like have that sense of being a man. You know, it's just like what does that really mean now? Since so many things are changing.
Yeah, and it's just a really interesting thing for me because I guess there's still a lot of introspection that I have to do on that topic because I don't know, like I just exist.
Yeah,
it's a kind of a strange thing, but I guess when you do break it down, you should have that. I mean, gender should be something that, I mean, there's a reason that people seek out clarity in their gender identity.
Yeah.
Because that's something that is so integral to your identity.
Yeah.
So for people that, you know, just, you know, conform with, you know, their, God, I don't know, I'm lacking on my terminology.
Yeah,
but like for, you know, your average person, I guess they don't give much thought to like gender identity when there definitely is a conversation to be had there and some introspection to be done.
You know, I'm lucky enough to have been born a man and, you know, feel at home in my skin being a man, you know, but it's like, obviously I know there are people out there, you know, besides just who strictly identify themselves as men and women, you know, that have those problems with how they identify themselves, you know, and it's like, I'm lucky enough to not, like, I'm not saying, like, having, you know, some form of gender dysphoria or anything like that. I'm not saying that makes you a bad person by any means, obviously.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying that, like, you know, I'm lucky enough to not have had to worry about that, if that makes sense, you know?
Yeah. One
'Cause
thing
it's
that
like, that's definitely a challenge.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and for me, I don't have to worry as much about that. I I feel like at home as who I am, you know, and that gives me
That's
the
really good.
space to then wonder about like what who I am really means. And
Yeah.
and again, like for me, an important part of my identity has been, you know, exploring what manhood is, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And I think
Yeah.
that's I mean, I don't know. I feel like it's really difficult to
Mm-hmm.
grow up as like a young man right now
Hmm.
because it's like, you know, I don't know. I feel like all because there are like so like with the whole like male astrology, like alpha, beta, sigma,
God, it's
all that stuff.
ridiculous. Yeah.
It's like it's just like with the internet, there's just like so much garbage out there,
Mm-hmm.
and like young guys who are like using the internet that are like susceptible to this stuff can
Mm-hmm.
find it, and I feel like
And get a very skewed perception
yeah,
of what
exactly.
masculinity
And you
could
know,
and should be.
with the now that people have the facility to like be raised by like the morals of random people on like Reddit or Twitter,
Oh
you know,
God.
it's like I mean like way back in the day,
Mm-hmm.
it was like you would like your parents were, you know, your example,
Mm-hmm.
and you grew up to be like you learned from your parents, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and like your father was like the example of what a man was to you,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and for me now, I feel like that's still a really important part of my life.
Mm-hmm.
Is you know I'm lucky enough to have a wonderful dad who's still around,
Mm-hmm.
and like I'm able to learn from him on what like that's really helps
Mm-hmm.
me learn what it means to be a man. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
No.
I
Could
feel
could I
like
go off into?
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So
For
I'd
sure.
just say like as for my parents, they throughout basically my entire life they haven't really
Mhm.
conformed to like the traditional like roles that I'd say like are imagined in that like traditional 50s esque like
Yeah.
family image. Like they've
Mhm.
always been like for example like my mom is an entrepreneur.
Mhm.
They also both like they have the same profession as far as things go. And there's always just been like a complete like equality in terms of everything that they've done. So
Yeah.
it's interesting. So it just makes me think the concept of manhood definitely shouldn't be defined by roles that are assigned.
Yeah.
It should be.
Or even just the workplace. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and just like yeah, the idea of it being, I don't know, it's interesting because I'd even want to go into like where those concepts came about because
Mhm.
um like I'm not sure the historical like context of it, but like I feel like definitely world wars actually have impacted that a lot in terms
Mhm.
of solidifying like different like sort of positions that people should have just based on necessity. I feel
Mhm.
like there's actually um I don't know. I feel like those societal notions are actually fairly recent, you know?
Mhm.
Guess that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, for sure. What had I been getting on about just a moment ago? I don't
Oh
remember.
god, I interrupted you. You're talking
Think
about your dad, the
yeah,
image of a
yeah,
man.
I think so, for sure. Yeah, yeah. I feel like, cause kind of circling back to that, I
Mhm.
just feel like it's there are so many different forces now
Mhm.
that are pulling you in different directions, trying to inform how you're going to be raised. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And like to a certain extent, I feel like that can be an important tool,
Mhm.
because with my like improved perspective on the world and knowing people outside of just my family, it's like I'm able to look at my dad as the individual that he is, and think about all the things he's taught me about who I am,
Mhm.
and because I mean I feel like I don't know if this is a universal thing, but for me it's like with my parents, it's like there are so many things that I want to be like them for. I
Hmm.
want to replicate who they are in certain ways, but there are other ways that I see who they are and what they've done and how they've interacted with
Mhm.
people and me, and it's like there are certain things where I'm like I want to be different than that,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I feel like that's really important is learning from your parents.
Mhm.
Obviously in this case talking about manhood, my dad,
Mhm.
and my dad is neither of us are perfect, but he's taught me a lot, and it's
Mhm.
like looking back, I there are certain things about him that I want to emulate.
Mhm. Sure.
My dad has always been he's a sensitive guy.
Mhm.
He he cares about people, even though he doesn't always make it immediately clear or immediately obvious, I should say, not immediately clear.
Mhm.
But, and like another thing too is he's always, yeah, I mean, you talked about providing.
Mm-hmm.
He has always put so much emphasis on me and
Mm-hmm.
his family,
Mm-hmm.
Like I'll never forget the day that he got laid off from his job,
Hmm.
and he came home, and he had a conversation with my mom, and they were saying, because of what had happened, because they were going to be struggling a little bit for a little while,
Mm-hmm.
they decided that they were going to have to stop me taking piano lessons.
Oh.
And I just
Yeah.
remember my dad just crying
Oh,
about it.
it's awful.
And I'm actually getting getting a little choked up just thinking about it.
Yeah. God.
But it's just like he just cares about me so much,
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I've always struggled with is, you know, whether or not he's proud of me.
Hmm.
That's something that has always just been able to break me down,
Mm-hmm.
because it's like I feel like part of that too is just, being a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not here to be like, oh, those darn teens, but certainly, there is that factor of, you want to be independent and you want to prove yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, no matter how much you try to push your parents away,
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day, you just have this crushing doubt and
Hmm.
this like hunger and need to make them proud.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
even though you try to like be too cool, it's like at the end of the day, that's all fake.
Yeah, it's
And for
interesting.
me, that's
Isn't
always
it?
how it was. You know, I always really, really that was just something really important to me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like I just know that my dad really cares about me and
Mm-hmm.
wants me to succeed.
Mm-hmm.
It's like one of the greatest things he ever taught me was that in life, because he ended up he's an accountant,
Mm-hmm.
and I think he enjoys his job well enough, but he kind of picked up that profession with the intention of making a bag,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like I know he just wonders sometimes if that's what he was really meant for,
Yeah.
and it's like one thing
Yeah.
he always told me when I was even young is like that I should find what I love and do that,
Yeah.
and that's why I'm gonna be a musician, even
Mhm.
though the idea of making a bag is more or less a fantasy. It's like that's just, like, and that to me is like one of those moments where like that's what like why it's so important,
Mhm.
to have to have that like male mentor in your life
Yeah.
that can teach you what it means to be a man.
Yeah.
And
And
again, I'm
I'd
just
say maybe part of being a man is being that image down the line.
yeah,
You know?
and that's why for me, I'm so grateful to have my dad because I know there are some people that don't necessarily have that figure,
Mhm.
and I'm very grateful for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, I could say a lot of the same things about my own dad.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's just having that. He's both been a figure and a friend to me throughout my entire life,
Mhm.
and that's exactly what I want to emulate in my future. Absolutely.
For sure. But do you have any like specific ideas of like how specific ideas on like kind of circling back to the main question of like what
Mhm.
does it mean to be a man?
Yeah.
Do you
So,
have any specific
hmm.
examples of like how you would define
I don't know examples, but I
that?
actually do have a little tangent that I'd like to go off on. I was thinking about this
Certainly.
earlier. It starts with have you heard of the term gender euphoria?
Or I've heard of gender dysphoria, but I don't
Gender
know if I've heard of
euphoria would
euphoria.
be, I think, in terms of that, the opposite, the clarity that
Mhm.
comes with. I've heard it, from people that have struggled with their gender identity, is just coming into your own and finding an identity that suits you and just feeling completely and utterly affirmed in that.
Yeah.
And something that I don't really remember where I got the concept from, but was just like, I think there are a lot of people that will never actually have that in their life, to be completely honest with you. That
Yeah.
a lot of people that will just always conform with, exactly what they are and never actually give much question to their gender, what it means, really.
So you mean to say that like people might not ask the question we're asking and explore that about themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a big lack of introspection in terms of stuff, and honestly, it's been there for me too. Like just talking with you, like I've like had to rethink some of the things I've even like said.
Yeah.
I've gone, man, maybe I don't really know.
Yeah,
And that's like
for
kind of
sure.
then the process of this is just going like, man, because it is a necessary conversation,
Yeah, for sure.
a
And I
very
feel like,
necessary one.
yeah, like with the whole idea of, like, yes, we need to eliminate gender roles
Mhm.
and unify ourselves as humans as much as possible, right? Because
Mhm.
at the end of the day, it's a human experience,
Mhm.
not a man experience. But at the same time, we need to be careful to preserve that. Because, I experience life through being a man,
Mhm.
and it's like, again, that's like the whole thing we're talking about is
Mhm.
really what that even means,
Yeah. God, I hardly know what that means to me. It's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, like, what are some examples? You're talking about gender euphoria where you just feel so clear.
Mhm.
Do you have any examples of like when being a man has just made like it's like you've just felt it, like that sensation of just being so clear on who you are through that lens of
Man, it's interesting
manhood?
because I definitely have, but I'm not sure it's stuff that I would necessarily share. So
Mm,
I
yeah,
don't know. That's all.
that's perfectly
Yeah,
okay
not
too.
that it's like yeah,
Yeah, and I mean,
but there
again,
definitely
like,
have been those moments for me.
yeah, like what I said at the beginning, I feel like some of those moments where I have felt that the
Mhm.
like like the overwhelming clarity
Mhm.
of who I am, those have been like some of the most personal moments I've had with myself.
Mhm.
And I mean, I guess in the same way, I really can't think of any specific examples.
Mhm.
So I guess I understand where you're coming from,
Yeah.
but it's like those moments where everything makes sense
Mhm.
and you just are living through that lens
Mhm.
of the manhood.
Yeah.
That is really personal to
Yeah.
me.
And could I bring this around to a different like, kind of like related topic, but
Yeah,
that's of
go for it.
like brotherhood, you know?
Yeah.
That's something, and not in the familial sense.
Mhm.
Of just like finding, I don't know, like I mean, it really just comes down to friendship. It's like, but it's more how it's portrayed in media that kind of influences the term of like brotherhood.
Yeah.
But like finding that is also something that's really, jeez, that's a lot of creaking over there. Okay,
The house
anyway,
creaks.
but I've just found that to be something that I don't know, like. I didn't really have a main point to this, but like, have you experienced that sort of?
Experienced what exactly? What was
Man, it
your
gets
main topic?
brotherhood was what I
Oh,
was talking
brotherhood,
about.
yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, yeah, I know what you mean. And it's
Mhm.
like there's something I mean, again, it's like it's this whole idea that, we want to eliminate gender roles, but we want to maintain a sense of what it means to be a man. And it's like for me, I feel like again, like having a father figure or some male
Mhm.
role model is incredibly important as
Mhm.
growing up, right? But another thing that's also very important is to have people that are going through the same thing.
Mhm. Totally.
Having those friends that you can talk with stuff about.
Yeah.
Like Lucas,
Yeah.
him and I have had, spent late nights talking
Mhm.
about these things and like how our lives are going and what it means to be who we are.
Mhm.
And like I don't know if you've ever specifically labeled it as talking about what being a man means, but
Mhm.
it's like though it's just that's what to me a sense of brotherhood
Mhm.
is having those
There you
people
go.
that having your peers, having
Mhm.
because again it's like I think it's important. I mean, I would imagine it's important for like young women to have other women in their lives that they can relate
Mhm.
to. But I think it's some of my best friends ever are women,
Mhm.
and it's like it's just again it's like that whole idea of putting everyone on equal footing, but
Mhm.
still understanding that like what makes us unique is important,
Mhm.
and not trying to completely eliminate that from the
Mhm.
picture,
Yeah.
because to me it's still important that I can connect with people on the basis of being a man, and like
Mhm.
women can connect with other women and relate on that level
Mhm.
of just all of the different things that come with that.
Yeah, and it's interesting because like, I don't know, like I've never found like, yeah, there's definitely that relation there, but there's like at the same time, it's like, it shouldn't be like a constraining thing either.
Yeah, for
where
sure.
like, men feel like they can only make friends with men. Like, obviously that's stupid.
Yeah.
So it's like,
But
it's recognizing differences. It's not attempting to divide.
yeah. And I guess that's really another one of the main takeaways here is like just not just, more instead of I feel like in my opinion, right, the path to a more equal world is to not like attempt to ignore or invalidate or destroy what makes people unique, but rather to cherish everyone for what makes them unique, right? Like
Yeah.
yes, we need to, appreciate women and all of like again just and the whole gender thing, but it's like even if yeah, it's like men and women should be able to do the same jobs, do the same
Yeah, duh.
things, but at the same time, it's like we are like, in my opinion, fundamentally being a man or a woman or whatever you are, whatever your culture is. I think all of that is still very important, and I think my ideal world would be one where people are unique, and that's not a bad thing. That's not even something,
Mm-hmm.
it's like it's not even something that's a concern,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Yeah, I
I
don't.
there was one clip of Morgan Freeman where he was in an interview and someone asked him like, what are your thoughts on racism, like how do we stop it, and he just said stop talking about it.
Hmm.
And
That's
like
interesting.
I obviously I don't think that's really possible.
Yeah. No.
Because you know I mean it came from somewhere and it's been preserved,
Mm-hmm.
but just with those things, I mean
Mm-hmm.
again it's pretty idealistic,
Mm-hmm.
but just this dream of like having a world where you know we don't even have to stop and think about whether someone's a man or a woman
Mm-hmm.
and judge them based on that, just accept them. But it's like understanding that like it's still an important part of what makes us unique, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I
because
mean,
it's a facet of identity and
for
a
sure.
meaningful one for a lot of people.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
whether it's gender or whatever it could be,
Mm-hmm.
to me, being a man has always just been an important part of my identity.
Mm-hmm.
It's an important part of how I identify myself,
Mm-hmm.
how I interact with the world.
Mm-hmm.
I think at the end of the day, that's really the whole point here is just that we need to accept accept other people's identities, whatever it could be,
Yeah.
and cherish the differences rather than trying to just iron everyone out and make everyone the same.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's really
'Cause
important.
I think that's what makes humans unique is
Mm-hmm.
that there are so many of us and none of
Mm.
us are the same.
Yeah.
So I mean the idea, and I'm not saying that don't get me wrong, I'm not accusing the feminist movement or any other thing
Oh yeah. No.
or
I
any
know.
other social reform or anything like that of trying to like make everyone the same.
Yeah.
That's
There's
not
no grandiose goal to it. It's just like
Yeah.
things that
for sure. And like
potential things.
and I just feel the need to clarify all of that
Yeah.
because like I don't want to
Yeah, 'cause-
I'm trying not to step on any toes here. I hope I've not said anything out of line. But
yeah, it's a strange debate to have, and I know we're probably
Yeah.
as we're going through this, we're just kind of like figuring out our thoughts as we go too.
yeah,
So it's
for
like,
sure. And I'm just trying not to say anything that could be misconstrued. But
yeah, and it's interesting.
I hope
You
my
were,
my main points have been made.
mhm.
And it's like, yeah, to me, it's just we need to preserve and appreciate those things about each
Yeah.
other rather than, like I said, I'm not accusing feminists or any movement of
Mhm.
trying to diminish or iron out differences, but I think ideally we need to focus on everyone being unique. And to me, that's why, obviously men have been the majority for millennia. But to me, if we want to get to a point where we're all equal, then, like I said, men should still be part of the conversation,
Mhm.
Even though it may not be the most urgent
Mhm.
part of the conversation. I think
Mhm.
it's still important to have and important to
Yeah.
consider if we want to reach this point where we can all peacefully coexist.
Yeah.
I didn't expect this video to get so deep into like social activism and stuff.
Yeah,
but
and it's just like it's interesting for me because like we're talking about movements and we're talking about sides and things like that. When honestly, I think that all of this stuff is incredibly intimate. I think it's something that is found through introspection and things like that. And we have all these like, great like things that are advocating for social change, which are incredibly admirable. But also others that are telling people how to live. telling people how to be. And if it's just interesting because I feel like, you were talking about your ideal world and stuff like that. For
in
me,
a social sense, yeah.
yes, yeah. For me, that would just be one in which everyone could experience that journey of finding themselves intimately and with positive influence,
Without the fear of what exploring your identity might result in.
Yeah, because a lot of people are afraid of exploring that. Is what I find, which
sure.
like there are a lot of very deep things that could get into, but I just genuinely feel like a lot of people are afraid of introspection nowadays. It's interesting.
Yeah, and especially when it's so easy to escape, so easy to avoid thinking about those things.
Yeah.
It's important that we take that time.
Yeah, we live in a world where those escapes are ever increasing. So
for sure. So yeah, I think we've hit quite a bit.
Yeah, jeez.
This really just blew up on us.
Yeah.
In lots of places. But do you have any? We're probably pretty far. A solid 30 minutes already.
Jeez, oh gosh,
But,
how did that happen?
I don't know.
That was a really interesting one because honestly, I feel like we both went into that with just kind of a blank slate.
Yeah, we just sat down and were like, let's talk about being men.
Yeah.
And then just kind of went from there.
Yeah.
But did you have any wrapping up? Well, I guess real quick before we wrap it up, I wanted to say kind of revisiting that idea of brotherhood. I think I really liked that idea I put out there that to me brotherhood is all about because obviously there's a distinction between brothership and just friendship. And to me, the most important part is just that it's with other people, like other men, like other people my age that are going through the same things.
Yeah, just that intrinsic similarity to a person.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like I was saying, it's important for anyone to have that fundamental connection where they can have that with someone.
Absolutely. Yeah,
where they can have a place where they can discuss and explore their identity in a different way with different people.
And I just loved hearing you talk about brotherhood because I posed that question and then you described it basically exactly how I would. So, and I thought that was really cool that you
pulled
had
that
those
one out of nowhere,
experiences.
but it turned out to be pretty interesting, I think.
Yeah, that was sweet.
Yeah, any wrap ups, any closing remarks on this whole manhood testosterone filled box here?
Not in particular, other than just saying that it's a journey, it's an ongoing one for me and for so many other people.
Definitely.
And I don't know, for anybody that's watching this, I hope you get that. I hope you resolve that journey.
Yeah. And I guess, obviously we're relating on the basis of being a man, but just to blow the lid off of things, it's like whether you're a man or a woman or non-binary or, whatever your identity is that you're examining, I just hope that we can all reach a point where, like you said, we're able to connect with ourselves.
We all deserve that.
Yeah, for sure. So it's just that idea of, I think you pretty much put it perfectly, having that ability to be introspective and find ourselves and have those moments where everything's so clear that we're just euphoric,
Yeah.
I think, and the thing is and for me, I want to be able to accept people for that, and it's like, it's not like that's ever been an issue for me, but just, I want to be able to know different kinds of people that, have had different experiences.
Yeah, I want to see that uniqueness. We were talking about uniqueness.
For sure. Yeah. And it's like,
it's a beautiful thing.
Even though, the whole aspect of brotherhood is very important. And, having that connection, it's just as important to have unique interactions and unique people that aren't like you.
Because
being able to expand on things you already know, talking about being a man with someone else who is a man, that's really important. That teaches you a lot. But learning about other people expands your horizons,
Absolutely. Yeah.
So that's something really important too. So I guess my main takeaway is just, that I hope that as we move forward in the world and attempt more methods of social reform and trying to bring everyone together, that I hope that we can make an effort to not just bring everyone to an equal footing, but empower everyone.
Absolutely.
It's more about, making everyone feel the best and be the best version of themselves. Because I feel like, if we're all living, like, if we all understand and love ourselves for who we are and our identity, then that in itself would work towards a perfect world right away.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
I think that's probably a good place to leave it, right?
I guess so.
Mm-hmm.
Really cracked this one open.
Seriously, that got deep.
It did. But yeah. Any final things?
No, that was great.
All right. Well, man, I feel calm and collected now.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, want to do our little sign off?
Little sign off.
All right. Well, this is Sam signing off.
This is Daddy Big signing off. And yeah, I'll see you boys in the next one. Thanks for tuning in.